the other big story we're tracking right now. Remember that Prime Minister Modi has responded to Trump's trade offer. He has said that India and the US are close friends and natural partners, and has exuded confidence on trade negotiations between the two countries. This is a huge update coming in right now, viewers of Republic TV. And I want to go across to our guest who's joining us. We are being joined by Mr. Saurabh Shukla, consulting editor, US, joining us here on Republic TV. Thank you for joining us here, Mr. Shukla. A very, very big update coming in because we have seen a lot of back and forth between Trump and India. We have seen how Trump has called India a dead economy, including Russia. But according to you, what exactly has led to the change of heart for Donald Trump? Now he's extremely optimistic about negotiations with India.
You know, if you ask me, it's the personal chemistry between the two countries which was pivotal. If you ask me, the personal chemistry between the two leaders, I beg your pardon, the personal chemistry between Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that is there with US President Donald Trump. And I can tell you from sources at the highest level in White House that, you know, this is something which really mind, because he has been saying, if you see all along, both the leaders have not used anything which about each other at all, because he is somebody, if you know, in February when Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited US, the kind of red carpet that was given out by President Trump, that was manifested in this partnership. And obviously there were certain misgivings, there were certain challenges which were there, but certainly the leader to leader diplomacy is what matters in President Trump's White House, and that is where he gives accords, I would say, greater leverage to anything else other than the key chemistry that he has with a particular leader. In this case, Prime Minister Modi, he's had an enormous respect and chemistry, and that's the reason why you have seen this trade talks also getting resumed, because there is a sense here in Washington, D.C. that India obviously told them that there were clear red lines which they cannot cross, and India wanted to uphold its national interest. That message has gone out loud and clear and has also been understood. So they've agreed that as good friends, they will continue to create that dialogue, talk to each other, and also make sure that any small differences can be ironed out. I would say that the biggest takeaway out of these messages that have come out from these leaders is that the relationship, the foundation of US-India partnership, that stays strong, and that will continue to guide the relationship, in not only on trade issues, but also for a wider multifaceted partnership, whether this is Indo-Pacific, whether there is issue related to critical minerals, strategic stability, or defense, or cooperation on tech and AI. So I would say that this is a new dawn. This is morning in Delhi and obviously late night here in Washington, D.C., but it's a new dawn in a way for not only the trade dialogue to restart, but also the entire relationship between US and India, that gets a further momentum.
Well, absolutely, Saurabh, a very good morning to you. We are the only channel getting the live White House insights on why is the sudden move by Trump coming to fore. Republic is the only channel with the full White House presence of exclusive insights. Saurabh, the Prime Minister has reposted, he's replied to Trump's post. In fact, Donald Trump has reposted Prime Minister Modi's post. If we can call it right, it seems to be like a truce that has come into fore. But you are reporting from the United States, from Washington, D.C., and you are aware about what's happening inside the White House. Why do you think is this sudden change of heart from Donald Trump come to fore after he's gone out to be a bully, after he's gone out to be a global cop? Why this sudden change of heart from Donald Trump for India now?
I'll tell you what, I would not use the same words that you are using, because obviously the ground reality was always different. I've always said on whenever I have commented that there is a deeper understanding between US and India, and not everything that comes out on the fore. Yes, the tariffs on India was unfair. Obviously, there are enough people in Washington who also believe, but what he was trying to do was, President Trump has been using his tariff for, to get his own diplomacy, especially when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, which he wanted to solve the issue. So in a way, India became a collateral. But more than anything else, is the personal chemistry between leaders which guides the relationship between countries when it comes to the Trump White House. This is something you should understand, because unlike other White Houses and other leaders who are guided by their diplomats, their officials, President Trump has a different way of doing things. He is somebody who will pick up the phone and talk to a world leader with whom he has a respect, and will obviously make sure that any differences that are there will be ironed out. In case of Prime Minister Modi, he has been saying all along that he has the greatest respect for the Prime Minister, and he also realized the importance that India has as a key strategic friend of the US. That's the reason why you see a turnaround. And people who were naysayers, they did not understand the nuances which are there for the US-India partnership today. It goes beyond one particular issue. I can tell you that even when there were differences on trade, they were talking with each other on strategic issues, they were talking to each other, there were defense exercises happening. Obviously, there are certain third countries which will want India and the US not to have the greatest relationship. But I would say that under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, that chemistry binds the relationship. And it's very important not only for them to constantly stay engaged in a dialogue, but also to make sure that they continue to meet as well, because that's very important. Because I can tell you from very informed sources right here in Washington, D.C., that there is greater, obviously, there are certain people who would want this relationship to derail, but at the highest level, when it comes to President Trump, he realizes he still has the memories of the amazing welcome he got when Prime Minister Modi hosted him in India, and when Prime Minister Modi came for Howdy Modi here in the US. So these are the emotional connects that President Trump accords greater priority to, and India should capitalize on it, and not only make sure from here build on a wider partnership to make sure that we can create a consequential partnership between US and India for a prosperous, better and a safer world.
Right, absolutely. Saurabh, what do you also think are now going to be the repercussions of, as we may call it, the truce between India and the United States? Where do you see India-United States ties going forward here on after Donald Trump has talked about how India is a close ally? Prime Minister Modi has reiterated the same sentiment. Where do you see India and United States ties going on from here?
I think, what we need to do, and I'll tell you outright, that we need to change our gears when it comes to diplomacy. India has to do more proactive diplomacy than it has been doing when it comes to US, and also the style, because the Trump White House requires a different deft style of handling. You cannot expect the Prime Minister to deliver each time. You cannot expect the Prime Minister to use his personal chemistry to iron out differences. I think what our diplomats also have to do, our Foreign Office also has to do, is to make sure that they follow this entire momentum that is there because of the leader-to-leader approach. They have to change gears here, because, you require a more proactive engagement in Washington, D.C. You require change of gears. And that doesn't mean, because, you cannot have an old world way of doing diplomacy. This is a new world. The White House is very different. President Trump is a great friend of India, and Prime Minister Modi. We need to make sure that we engage key interlocutors on a regular basis. We need to engage people who are there in President Trump's orbit on a regular basis, because that is a message, because this is a different ballgame and this relationship is too important. And obviously, you cannot expect each time Prime Minister to solve these problems for you. You need the entire diplomatic establishment to carry on the full weight, which unfortunately, I would say, hasn't been able to do as much as it should be doing in a very proactive manner.
Right. Saurabh, but keeping in mind Donald Trump's history, once upon a time he called India his closest ally. On the second hand, he and his aides went on to say that India is the one who's fueling the Russia war. Then he imposed a 25% tariff and then a penalty of 25%. And now he's back to the same square where he is mending his ties with India. He's extending an olive branch. And keeping all of this in mind, the flip-flop of Donald Trump, do you think we can take the United States president at face value?
Well, I'll tell you what. He was using tariff as a negotiation tactic. He was trying, in fact, people like Peter Navarro and some of the others who were name calling, and which was unfortunate, absolutely, because you don't do it for your close friends. Certainly, if you see the messaging coming out of President Trump, he never uttered a single word about Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi was very mature in dealing with this entire issue. The way he handled it has been praised a lot here in Washington, D.C. I can tell you that we have to understand that every world leader has a different way of dealing with issues. Certainly, there are things President Trump has, that's his style. The fact is that US-India partnership is so important that we have to deal with the US president. And when you have a US president who really trusts your prime minister, you need to go out and make sure that your diplomatic outreach is in a different manner. I can't explain enough the number of people who have told me that our outreach that they expected from India could have been a bit different from the diplomatic establishment, because Prime Minister's visit was really very good. If you ask me, I was the one inside Oval Office who asked him the question. The first question was asked by me in the press conference about our partnership, which both Prime Minister Modi and President spoke about. And then I asked him about who is the tougher negotiator, and he said Prime Minister Modi. So here is somebody of the stature of the US president who's telling that our Prime Minister is a tougher negotiator. We need to, I would say, recalibrate our partnership as it exists with the US and also look at newer strand of cooperation, because I can tell you that under the leadership of both Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, you can create a partnership like never before, because you have a chemistry which is good. All you need to do is to make sure that you rejig the way you handle US with a different brand of diplomacy, compared to what was being done in the past.
Right. So, Saurabh, is it then right to say that here at this point in time, it is the Modi diplomacy that has worked, that has created the truce between India and US? Can we put it that way?
Absolutely. I would say it's Modi diplomacy all along the way. Anybody who's listening to me, watching us, should not have two ways about it. Because I'll tell you what, this is the personal chemistry. See, global diplomacy, especially when it comes to leaders like President Trump, is on a people-to-people approach. If you see the kind of people who are in his orbit, they're all close personal friends or people who are somebody, who have impressed. President Trump, and I can tell you from people within his orbit, has been impressed by Prime Minister Modi's working style, by the fact that he has had a appeal amongst the global world leaders. And I think that is one of our strongest point, which we need to cash. But the Prime Minister should be, as I said, should be the last resort. We need to rejig the way we do our diplomacy when it comes to the US. Obviously, the old world of diplomacy cannot work, and we need doers who have the same kind of momentum as Prime Minister Modi's diplomatic outreach has when it comes to the global leaders like President Trump.
Saurabh, also one very interesting thing to note here is Donald Trump has reached out to India. And this is not the first time, of course. It was just a few days back when he's given a soundbite inside his Oval Office where he said that India and the United States share very good ties, after which the Prime Minister has also replied. This is the second time when an incident like this is happening. It is a recurring time. And one thing to note here is he did not reach out to China. He did not reach out to Russia, and that he reached out to India. Do you think this is going to have have a larger impact on the Quad when we talk about India's relation with China, when we talk about India's relation with Russia?
Well, I can tell you one thing. Every country, India's whole, I would say the mantra of strategic autonomy, while it is friend with one country, it is not that it's there at the cost of the other country. Certain friends, India and the US have a unique relationship which will continue and which should continue to develop because there are unique strands. With China, you have to manage the relationship. You have to be very, very clear that China cannot be your closest friend ever because obviously China considers India as a strategic threat. They will never be a friend. When it comes to partnerships like the US realizes that India can be a great friend because it wants to balance China. It also does not see India as a rival. It sees India as a complementary friend. And same way, India also sees US as a friend who can be reached out when it comes to whether the global economic gains or global geopolitical gains. Yes, as good friends, we agree to disagree on certain issues. That has come to the fore. But we should, as I was saying, use this leader-to-leader diplomacy that we have under, Prime Minister Modi's leadership and also with US President Donald Trump being there to make sure that we create further bonds of friendship, create further avenues of cooperation to make sure that there are enough strands which bind us,
Right.
which is very important.
Right.
And the US side realizes this. In fact, India can be that bridge, which even the US uses to reach out to some of these interlocutors.
Absolutely, Saurabh. Saurabh, one last question before I let you go. One thing is certainly clear that from here on, from today onwards, the India-United States trade talks are in full swing. Do you expect, and are you hoping, and what are your White House inside sources telling you? Are you expecting a positive news on that front?
Absolutely. I can tell you that I've been talking to a lot of sources. The deal is almost a done deal. There were certain contours which were there. Obviously, it requires, and I do expect, there are certain red lines India has and India has conveyed to the US that it will not cross it. US also had certain red lines. So idea is, how do they move forward? Now, all it requires is that the officials, now that both the leaders have sent out a green signal, they need to reconvene, sit together, come out with a deal. What my sense is that there will be a mini deal which can come out now, followed by a larger agreement which has all-encompassing, a host of areas that it will cover. But I do expect very strongly that the deal can happen very soon. The political will is there on both sides, and that is manifested by the statement coming out from both the leaders.
Right. Saurabh Shukla, thank you very much for joining us today here on this big day when there are so many developments coming forward in the India and United States ties. Republic is the only channel getting you the exclusive White House insights, the only channel who has a permanent presence in Washington, D.C. On that note, Saurabh, thank you again very much for joining us this morning. It's time for us to now slip into a short break.